Hey guys, so a few people over the months have asked for a little video just explaining a little bit about, well, what's the background, where do you live, what do you do, and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd give you a very quick intro and then we'll maybe get a game or two, so we'll see. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you where it all happens. Alright, so this is where I was just standing. This is our house. It's not our house, we rent it off the local estate, which is like a large country house in Britain. So they were kind of dominant. Here comes some dogs. And yeah, so a few hundred years ago, a lot of the land was owned by these rich landowners, and they built these massive houses. Our house used to be the gamekeeper's cottage for the gamekeeper, who managed the animals on the estate. And so that's Sarah, that's my wife has just come out. So yeah, it's quite a nice big place. And we cannot keep control of the garden. We've got lots of ducks, as you know, and we have cockerels and stuff like that as well. And there's Dino, our cat. So got a little pond over there where we keep the ducks. They all have to be put away every night. And a couple of cars. And here, this is what's going on here. This is a smoker. My wife's work is, she works for an artisan food school, so she does a lot of butchery and stuff like that. Here is evidence of my other hobby. That's a stick that could be made into a didgeridoo sometime soon. Here is another stick that is shaped to be ready to make into a didgeridoo. There are a couple of didgeridoos there. So the house is from about 1820. This is my workstation in my office. Big massive old Apple Mac Pro. It's about 10 years old, but it's got loads and loads of memory and stuff in it. There's my seat and backdrop that you'll probably recognise, and a whiteboard with some stuff on it. So there you go. Alright guys, welcome back. So we've got a 20-minute rated game up on the board. This is interesting. I've had this opening twice today, the Steinitz. It's where white plays e4 and then e5. So we're basically now in a French advanced variation, just a different move order. See, after this, after d5, white has the option of capturing en passant, which would be a mistake because c takes. So, interesting times. Anyway, so now straight away I can simply capture the central pawn with my wing pawn. Can have knight captures or queen captures. Either way, probably my knight's going to come to c6 and attack the piece that recaptures. And now, if white takes my knight, again I get to capture towards the middle. So that will leave us in a situation where it's my b pawn that's missing, but white's d pawn that's missing. So I then have a central majority. I've got 2 in the center compared to white's 1. Okay, so he's decided against, which I think is the right move. So I've got a couple of options here. First things that spring to mind are to bring my dark squared bishop out. This knight is attacked once. If I bring my bishop to here, it's now attacked twice, which will force white to have to respond. Probably that. Another option is to bring my bishop out and pin the knight on c3. And yet I could also then follow up with that. So I think bishop out first. Question is, which is the most forcing position? I kind of like this one. Let's put pressure on the knight. This is a pin, but it's not forcing. Excuse me, all full of sniffles. Right. Okay, so the knight's retreated to f3. It means my bishop's in a slightly aggressive position now. If I pull my queen out here to b6 now, that just looks very, very natural. Ooh, okay. Because I'm threatening now bishop takes f2 check, king can't capture, so the king would have to move. Another issue here for white is, if white's dark squared bishop moves, b2 will be undefended. That's a very, very common theme. Okay, I can bring my knight in, attack the queen. We might then just trade knights. My bishop ends up on there. Does that help my situation? Maybe not. So let's now bring my other knight around. I think knight here to g6. Okay. He's forking my queen and my bishop, but I have this move, which I think will force the knight to come back, because the knight will be undefended. That's check. So he's got to get out of check. There's only a few ways of doing it. Bishop here, pawn here, but either way, the knight falls. So I think knight back to c3 is pretty much forced. Don't you? I then have, do I have d4? Attacking the pinned piece. I think I do. You know, I think I do. Attack the pinned piece. Knight cannot move because it's pinned, it's iced. Ice the knight. Okay, yeah, good response. So what we have here is a counter attack. If I come here and then b4, I can take the b4 pawn freely because this pawn will then be pinned. So I'm coming back. Tactics within tactics, ladies and gentlemen. So I just played 2 unrated games against a guy from India, about 1100 rated. Won them both fairly comfortably. And he played that same Steinitz, was it Steinitz? E4, E5. Breaking one of the golden rules. Okay, so he's got a problem. His knight is under attack and his knight is still pinned. Iced. Iced, baby, as we say. Okay, now, my inclination here is to capture the knight, because the queen's defended by the knight, yeah? So if he wants to trade queens, whoop-de-doo. If he doesn't trade queens, I get to capture on b2 with a discovered check. Okay, off come the queens. Happy days, I'm up a piece. He has to capture there. Then he's... Oh! Hot dang. Alright. Okay, that was a good move and I didn't see it. And I don't have en passant. Yeah? If my pawn had been there, I could have captured en passant. Well spotted. Vitalik, 1964. Right then. Couple of ideas. The question here to ask is, what do I want to keep? If I think my knight has prospects in this game, then I've got, for example, bishop takes f2 as a desperado. Attack the king with check, king takes bishop, king loses castling rights. Okay, so my compensation is 1 pawn and really 1 more point for king losing castling rights. And then my knight gets to retreat, maybe attack this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, or if I think that my bishop is the better piece, which, considering the lack of pawnage on the, right, only 1 pawn has been lost from either side so far, yeah, but there are lots and lots of lines open. Right, we don't have pawns meeting in the middle. This is the only deadlock on the board, and that probably won't persist for very long. So if I want to keep my bishop, then I could try this, attack the rook, and if b takes, he ends up with double pawns here, and my bishop escapes. And it also opens up a line for that. So that's the question, what do I want to keep? So let's try this approach, just for fun. This is a rated game, this is a 313, so it's a must win. My rating has slipped a bit, with 1454 at the moment. If he takes bishop, I take rook. My knight may not get out alive, but I can at least take out a pawn on my way out, and that's equal. So I'm still going to be +3. So he has to take the knight. I get to... Now that was just silly. Okay, I can take the bishop and then he has a choice of one or two pieces. If I take the bishop and he takes my bishop, can my knight get out alive? He can come here. Then, like, rook here. Is my knight trapped? Or... this is still the same situation. Hang on. So I do have two pieces under attack. But I'm +3. So I have to take the bishop, yeah? I have to take the bishop. I also had that, but then we've got knight takes. I think that was the wrong move from my opponent, because I'm still now at +3. So now I think that is pretty obvious. Drop the bishop back. And I have the bishop pair. So basically I have an extra dark square bishop that white does not. White is also not ready to castle. Okay, I'm going to block with my knight. If takes, takes. Yes, I've got messed up pawns, but if I'd have blocked with a bishop, white has the option of bishop takes, king takes. Actually, that isn't even the end of the world, because when the queens are off the board, getting your king to safety with castling is not so much of a biggie. Alright, but I'm quite comfortable now. Really, I'd love to protect this pawn somehow. I think for white to capture at this point would be foolish. Because yeah, it'd be messing up my pawns a bit, but also opening up the board and leaving me with two bishops against none. So he'd only have a knight. Right, what's your idea? Is it your idea to come here and come after my pawn? Just inclined to drop my bishop back. Two attackers on this pawn. Rook can't defend by coming here. Rook could defend, one of these guys could come there. Okay, there we go. Alright. My knight's now no longer pinned. I could just pivot it around. I think that looks kind of sensible. Could also kick the bishop. I kind of like this. I think this looks good. Get the knight into the centre of the board, defend this pawn. Then we'll shoo that bishop away. Okay, so he's trying that, but I have this to defend. So fairly comfortable. So he wants to remove the defender of the pawn. He's obviously scared of that pawn. And I don't really blame him, to be honest. Right. But you know what, if he wants to give up his bishop, but am I going to end up losing a couple of pawns and slipping back a bit? Takes, takes. He's then got a choice of pawns, hasn't he? Should I centralise my rook? Get it on the open file. Yeah. The nav takes, I've got the option of rook takes, and then he's going to be faced with trading off rooks. He should just take the pawn. This bishop's undefended, so I'll have to move him here. But that's still in line with the king. This bishop is defended, so I'm going to go there. Okay, so he's regained a pawn, but in the process, he's traded off his only bishop. My bishop wants to come like round here, and then we really are. We've got some good coverage down towards the enemy king. So definitely get the bishop out, connect the rooks, maybe get the king off the back rank, maybe put a rook here to defend these backwards pawns, yeah, the pawns at the back of my defences, something like that. Rooks are in line. This would be a big mistake, because bishop here. Boom, 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 boom. Pew, 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 pew. Rook falls. Ha ha ha. Okay. So we stick it to the plan. Rook can't go there, can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. That's what I was checking before I moved. Think my bishop wants to come here, guarding that square. This is also an option, attacking that pawn. And then that kind of glues this rook to the pawn for the time being. I also have maybe rook c8. Now that square's defended by the bishop, and that would get rid of the rook one way or another. It either swaps off. This now, if he pushes that, are we worried? I'm just gonna create a little hidey hole. Get out of it. This pawn is a pin. Still think about rook c8. Huh. Now I had this in a game yesterday when a rook came into my position and found itself trapped. So bishop c6. Temptation. Also defends the pawn. I mean, that's a key thing. I could play about pawn b5. Pawn b5 takes en passant, takes. No worries. But if this, I haven't dropped the piece yet, I'm just holding it. Now if you're playing over the board, you have to do this with the power of your mind. Rook's really only got one square it can go to, which is there. So if kingy starts to come across now, I can force this rook off the board, leaving me with bishop pair and a rook against a knight and a rook. Okay, 2 attackers on here. Get it. I can defend that quite easily, and then we can kick the knight. Bishop's now undefended, but what's going to get the bishop? Nothing. It's safe as houses, mate, in there. Safe as houses. Right. h6. Kicking the knight away. I had a thought at one time, if you were to have a chess-themed pub, what would you call it? I think my preferred thing was the Exchange. Let's call it the Exchange. So people might say, oh, we're going out the Exchange tonight, or we're going down the Exchange. Either way it works. So that's when you trade a minor piece, knight or bishop, for a rook. So if you're the one that gets the rook and gives up a minor piece, you're up the exchange. If you have lost the rook for a minor piece, you're down the exchange. I quite like that one. I think the hanging bishop sounds like a really good one as well. I think a lot of people go, oh, we're going down the hanging bishop tonight. Yeah. Don't know why I'm doing it in a Cockney accent. Don't really matter. Right, now. Bishop here. Go back to the standard Welsh, eh? Bishop here. Attacking the rook. Now the only safe square he's got is to go to here. But then if my bishop's here, I've got 2 attackers on that. He's having a think now. The rook is stuck. We're in the stickiest situation since Sticky the Stick insect got stuck on a sticky bun. Blackadder Series 4. So you had in the comments as well today, somebody saying that I should have played the Papa Lazarou gambit, which is different to the Papaticula gambit that I made a video on. Ooh, hello. What's all this then? What's all this then? Yeah, what's all this then? Right. I have an idea number 1 is force a trade of rooks, right? Idea number 2, rook to here. And then look at this evil sniper of a bishop. I'm kind of tempted. I have succumbed. Bishop takes, boom, wins. What? The exchange. King has to go here to defend the rook. Bishop takes rook, king takes bishop. Rook buggers off to safety, and we have won ourselves an exchange. Okay, he's twigged. Now if I kick the knight's going to come back to one of these squares and attack my rook. No bad thing, right. I could then come back and force the exchange of rooks there. If I play this now, rook has to come here. I can't move this rook. I want to centralise that rook. Okay, let's kick the knight. Knight's going to come here. I have to move my rook. Might come there, for example, because we've got two pawns, both of which are undefended. Neither of which will be undefended after the knight goes to one of these squares. Oh, actually, he can't go there because bishop just snatches him off. Oh, it's tempting, and I can't go here because the knight will get me. Oh, I'm tempted to snatch the knight off, but this bishop's doing such a good job. However, if b5, if I lose my bishop, this pawn's undefended too. So b5 takes. Right, I'm coming in. I'm removing the rook. The rook is too much of an annoyance. So rook takes, bishop takes. I'm in a winning situation now. I have two bishops against one knight. Right? My opponent does have one extra pawn, which is that guy who's just moved here. Right, so now my first thought is just bishop here. Bishop here defends the pawn, that's defended, everything's defended, this pawn cannot advance, right? And then this bishop is going to want to come around. Yeah, it's just very straightforward. I want to get my rook onto the open d file. I want to get my king like here, defending the back of the board. Okay. If he wants to swap off his remaining minor piece, I'm not going to stand in his way. Okay, and now I have the open file, so his rook cannot go to d1. So next stage in the plan, centralise the king. You've got to activate your king in the endgame. Bishop b8 attacking this as well is definitely a plan, but he does have f4 to defend it. So now my advantage is I have a bishop. He has an extra pawn. Rook here is an idea. I'll force him to go there. Oh, he's just pinned this pawn. He's moved it one. Why have you moved it one? You could have defended that pawn by moving it two. Okay. I think this looks alright. His rook still can't go there. Okay, so he said that was going to be forced. Right, now the king activate. King activate. Okay, in comes the king. You attack my rook, huh? Let's drop back, attack this. He's going to have to push either king or pawn to defend. I have bishop here, adding a second attacker. If he defends with the king... Right, he's failed to defend the pawn. So now he's lost his pawn advantage. He's got one here, and I've got this guy, which I'm quite happy about. Now my bishop has a lovely diagonal all the way up here. If he pushes, we're just going to trade some stuff off, and my rook is going to get a pawn to grab at the end of it all. This bishop now has the lovely option of going all the way up here. Surely you don't want to trade. He's trading. Is he trading? Now the key is going to be making sure this guy doesn't force his way through. Because I've only got 2 defenders there. I have f5 check. King can't go there, there, there. King has to retreat. Let's throw that in. I like that as an intermediate kind of move. Forces the king backwards, right? Can't go there because of my lovely bishop. I've got rook here now, which forces the king. No, it could go there. Don't think I want to push this. If rook takes my rook, you should always consider this. Always, always. You don't have to be the one to initiate an exchange. You have to figure out which way round is best for me. His rook taken my rook, and I now have a complete passed pawn. There is no pawn on any of these squares that can stop my pawn from d5 from going up. So that is not a bad thing, right? If I take his rook, king takes, king ends up there, I push e5. And that's pretty cool as well. So I don't really mind either of those scenarios. So I'm just going to improve my bishop, I think, with this. King can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. Can't go there now. King's only got 2 squares. And if rook swaps off, e takes d5. And this is now a passed pawn. There is nothing, and he can't go there or there. Okay, I'm going to come here. And now what's he got? Note, my bishop is covering this square. My king can also retreat. His king cannot get through. This is very, very important. You think very spatially in the endgame, right? Because of my bishop guarding this whole thing, right? And because of the position of my pawns guarding here, the king cannot access that square or that square, right? Therefore, this king has no way through this position right now. Right? All of these squares are out of bounds to the king. So the only things he's got is he can move this pawn, or this pawn. And my bishop can easily, at any point, stop this pawn or capture this pawn if it promotes, okay? This is important. So what I don't want to do here is play this, right? It's just a kind of a throwaway check. So right now I'm thinking something like g6 or g5. That looks okay. Okay, got 6 minutes still. No rush at all. So this is the pawn break we have to be concerned with. If he makes it now. See, right now, where can the king go? Can't go there, 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 there. Right? Can't go here. So even if he comes here, he can't get through. And he can't go there or there. So I'm thinking, I mean, I can retreat my king now to try and defend from this. What I should be doing is trying to push Dave the d pawn. I don't know. Okay, just play a waiting move. Either of these pawn moves, it gets swapped off. So let's think about if this pawn pushes and say I push here. I want to leave these guys, right? He goes there, I go there, I take. Then this guy has a free run, but he can't get through that square. So I could drop my bishop back here. Okay, we can swap that off, that's no trouble. I'm pushing the king. King can't go there, 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 there.
now. If he goes here, I'm tempted to do that. He can never get in through this position, and my bishop has always got this. So now actually the king cannot advance because, I mean, yes, he can go one square. I'd like to have that square actually, and keep it away from him. This square is also defended by the bishop. So he's definitely in a tricky situation, but it's not completely lost. I've lost games like this before. No bishop here. He's going to have to do something. Or just bishop here and defend the pawn. I can't move the king, Rene, see, that's my problem. Okay, bishop there. He can't push this because pawn takes. He can't push that either. So he's got either move the king or, okay. But now, you see bishop and pawn are defending each other. King can't come through. If this pawn advances, okay, now I come to here. Because the bishop and the pawn are paired. They are each other's backup. And now this pawn is done for. This is now resignable, I think. Yeah. That pawn's blocked. This pawn's blocked. You can move that pawn. Okay. Yeah. Interesting one there. Interesting one. All right. So there you go. That's today's game. I felt relatively good there. I'm not going to review it right now because I've got stuff to get on with. But thanks for watching. Hope you got some tips out of that, and I'll see you soon.